Hey guys, Retro Matt here. Going to be doing some work on the SX64 today. If you look at the picture, maybe you can see what's wrong here in this area. And let's bring up the capture device so you can see exactly what I see. What looks wrong there? And yep, you guessed it. That is the wrong kernel ROM in there. The reason for that is this machine had a problem. Gave some garbled screens after I got it. Let's see here. Yep, that's what it used to look like. That was a real strange one. I didn't think that could actually be the kernel ROM. So I went through and changed out everything, was checking voltages, and it was very static. It did not move around, didn't change at all when you typed. Yeah, so that was a real strange one. So I had to pull one out of regular 64 to put in there, and it came up as soon as I did that. And what I decided to do is to put in JiffyDOS, seeing as you can no longer get that ROM in the original format. And this is a good candidate to get JiffyDOS. So I'm gonna kind of get this installed here today. I'll give you some pointers, tell you how I'm going to go about it, and give you some hints on working on these machines along the way. So let's get to it. All right, so the JiffyDOS arrived in the post. Came in some real fancy packaging. We'll actually go up above here. So you can see, there it is right there in a fancy little box. Inside here, we've got a switch, some wires, and two ROMs. One for the SX64, and actually they're both for the SX64, but one goes on the main board, and then the other one goes on to the drive controller board. So we have a little bit of work cut out for us. Also, at the same time, I'm going to be installing, if I can find it here. Where did I put it? There it is. Received this as well. Move this out of the way. So at the same time, I went ahead and ordered some other things. ROM chip there. This is what we're looking for. An ultimate SX64 switcher, ROM switcher. I will leave a link in the description to this. I actually ordered it as a kit, and it showed up completely assembled. So, yay, I guess, maybe. I mean, I was looking forward to getting the old soldering iron out and getting something done with it, but it is what it is, right? So this actually will allow us to use the drive reset switch on the SX64, which is, should be right here, to use that reset switch to be able to, let's see, toggle the kernel ROM between the original and the SX64 custom ROM. It'll also allow us to change the drive number assignments, reset the drive itself, and actually reset the SX64 as well, which is something that is lacking on all 64s. So it's gonna, be nice to have those features available. So what we got to do is we got to tear this thing apart so we can get to those boards and get the chips installed. So let's get to that. All right, so opening up the SX64 is not isn't particularly difficult. Doesn't require too many great skills. It's just, it looks daunting when you open it up. So I'm just going to go through it and give you some pointers along the way. what we got to do is we have to pull off the lid and the power supply off the back. So the easiest way I found to do that is to turn it on its side, and we need to pull these off of each side, because underneath here are 3 screws on either side that hold the cover on. So there are 2 screws in the back of the unit that hold that on. Here you can see it here, runs down the side. So these 2 screws hold that. There's also on either side 2 more screws, Phillips head, that hold the power supply on the back, and we're going to pull that off after we get the cover off. So let's go ahead and get these removed. And once you get those out, this will just slide out. So if we set it down here, we should be able to just grab a hold of that and slide it right out. Now we will do the other side. And again, that will just slide right out and reveal our screws that are holding the cover on. We have one in the front, one in the middle, one in the back. We'll pull those out and set them aside. And then we'll flip it over and do the same on the other side. Okay. We should be able to flip it back over, and the cover should just lift straight off. After you pull the final 2 screws out, which I always forget about until I go to pull it off. Remember I told you that these screws hold the power supply on either side. So the top ones need to come out as well. So we'll go ahead and get those out. There is one. Every time I forget about pulling those off. All right, so now we can set it down and pull the cover straight off. So there it is in all of its glory. Let's get this to lay flat with any luck. There we go. So inside, we do have the main board. We have a controller board here, I/O board, which has your CIA chips on it. And then we have the drive controller board and the CRT over here and the power supply across the back. Like I said, our next step is going to be to pull the power supply out. So we need to pull this board off first. And we could just disconnect these wires. This is your external video. Pull that one off, this one off, and then there is also the the serial as well we could pull off. However, you know, because these are so hard to pull apart and put back together, when I'm working on them, I like to go ahead and get the case and the whole confusing bits, all the hard work out of the way, so I can very quickly you know, do my work and then test it before putting everything in and having to tear it back out again because something's wrong. So I'm going to kind of pull out the power supply, the interface board, the motherboard, and I'm going to, and as well as the disk controller, and kind of put it on the bench, kind of splayed out so that everything is there, and it's just going to make it a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the screws out for the connector PCB. So it's 3 screws across the back here. Of course, I dropped that screw. We'll find it in a minute. And then I'll go ahead and disconnect our ribbon cable here. And these connectors up here. And this one here. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it out and set it aside. And then, just so I don't lose these screws, like the one that I dropped inside, I'm going to go ahead and just pop them back in here. The less screws I have to keep track of, the better. And I see that other screw right down in there. Here, screw, there you are. Get up here. All right. Drop that screw right back in there. Okay, so that board's out. Now we're going to go ahead and finish pulling this power supply. So we should have 2 more screws left here in the power supply. One down here, and then another one on the bottom on the other side. So go ahead and pull those out. Just grabbing the one from the other side. And then I'm going to lay it back down. The reason being is we've got some other things to disconnect in here. We have down here 2 grounding points for the power supply, and then there's also power connectors on the other end. So let's get these out first. And again, just so I don't have to keep track of these screws, I'm going to plop them right back in there. One, 2. So let's see, then on the other side we have our connectors. One that goes to the controller board. Not a very good angle. Let's see, is that any better? That's a little bit better. We have, here's one for our disk controller, and another one going to the main board here. So you can just pop those off. By the way, these are interchangeable, so when you put it back together, you can put them either place. They'll work just fine. Then you also have, coming up to here, another connector going to the interface board, CIA board. And then you also have one going up here into the CRT circuit, right here. So you can pull that one off. And now that the power supply is out, we can set that aside. So the next thing to come out It's going to be that interface controller board right here. And those are held in, believe it or not, by itty bitty plastic pins. Right here. Not sure if you can see them very well in the video. Right in this area, right here is one. And then there are more that attach the motherboard down, the main board. They're not hard or difficult to get out. They're a lot harder to get back in. But what I usually do is take something and push the pin out most of the way. Try to leave the actual pin in there. Go ahead and disconnect this wire here so it's out of the way. And then it should be able to pull away here. And then you can disconnect this board because it's connected to the CPU board here. Just pull it away so it's not connected anymore. And that is now loose. So because we're going to be, splaying this out on the bench, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect everything. So carefully, so you don't bend any pins, pull away the connectors. So you've got this one here, and then this ribbon cable here that runs up to your cartridge port. And that can be disconnected as well. Okay, remembering where pin 1 is. Pin 1 goes at the top, and if you look at the board, pin 1 is denoted right there at the top of the board as well. So, although, it's been in there for, 30-something years, it's probably not going to forget which way it went. If you try to put it the other way, yeah, it's going to complain. I mean, you'll be able to do it, but it's going to have memory where it's going to be sticking up. So there is our interface board with our CIA chips on it. So we're going to set that aside. And now we have the CPU board. It has 3 of those pins. Plastic push pins here, in the middle, and here. So we're going to do the same thing. Just kind of push these in from the back so they're released. And this one up front here. And now that board should be free. Again, once I get it out, I'll just take and pluck those right back in again so they don't fall out and get lost. We're going to disconnect this wire here, which goes around down to our video circuit. And then this board should lift right up. And there's our CPU board. And there is our kernel ROM, the one we're going to be swapping out for JiffyDOS. So we'll now set that aside. If you look down here, well, you can see without any boards in, there's actually running right along here a track. And that CPU board sits inside that track on the bottom. That's why there's only three places that it's secured up top. Same thing with the interface board. There's that same plastic track is right down here. So sometimes if these boards get worked out of those tracks for some reason, it'll cause the main board here to separate from the interface board, and you'll have issues with it. Anything that's CIA driven or IO driven, you may end up having a problem with because it's not connect it all the way in. So that board fits together here and here. So if it's not seated correctly, where maybe some of the pins maybe at the bottom are touching like that, then it'll cause issues. So the last one we're going to pull out is going to be the disk controller board. I'm going to pull out the reset switch here. Pull off this connector and that connector. And again, we've got those push pins, and this board will come out. Pull those out. One on that side. One in the middle, which is actually missing. And then one here at the end. And this board should be able to fall away. Again, push those in so they don't get lost, and lift up. Again, there's our track that it rides in. And we'll set that board aside. So that's a lot of work. I know, but you'll see why we went down that route here in a little bit. All right, so all we've got here now is again our I/O board, our disk controller board, our motherboard, CPU board. And then we also have our video interface board. So for now, we're going to set aside the disk controller board. We're going to save that for later. We're going to concentrate first on swapping out the kernel ROM. So we've got our beautiful JiffyDOS package there. And we need to go ahead and pull out the kernel ROM and put the JiffyDOS one in its place. Pin 1s are facing this way on the main board to the right. So we'll go ahead and get that pulled out. That is UD3 is your kernel ROM. So we'll go ahead and just pry that up a little bit. Either side gently, or use a chip puller. I don't use chip pullers. They seem extremely violent to me. So I always worry more that I'm going to do more damage with a chip puller than with just being careful when I pull chips out. So we have our JiffyDOS here. There are two chips. We have a 1541 DOS ROM, and we have a SX64 kernel. If you flip it over here and pull off our anti-static, we will find that pin 1 is here on the left. Okay, so we're actually going to flip that around and then flip it over and drop it into the socket. Now, not sure if you can see very well or not. So the original kernel ROM that came in this machine was a 28-pin kernel ROM. And the replacement, actually this Commodore 64 one was a 24 pin, and so is JiffyDOS, 24 pin ROM. So the way we have to install this is we have to actually offset away from pin 1. We're going to skip, you know, pin 1, 2, and 27 and 28 and push it away from those. So when I put this in here, it'll be offset more towards the back than towards the front. So if you put it in the wrong way, if you put it more towards the front, it will not work. It shouldn't damage anything, but it definitely won't work. So I'm going to put that more towards the back, line it up, and give it a little push. And I'm going to make sure that there's no bent pins or pins sticking out either side. Okay. We'll reuse this and store that away. So now that is in, we are going to test this. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, this isn't in the machine anymore. How are we going to test this, Matt? We're going to plug in all these boards. So we're going to take our interface board and plug it in to the CPU board, making sure that it is good and tight. We are going to take our video connector here. There's two coming off here. One's bigger than the other. The bigger one is the video one. And we're going to plug it in here to connector, looks like P16. It is labeled external video, if you can see that or not. It should say EXT video, so we know that's the right one. I'm going to go ahead and plunk that in there. And the next thing we need to do is get our power supply. So here's a power supply. Power supply is keyed, so we don't have to worry about putting it in backwards or anything. You could put it in backwards. If you push real hard, you will push through the plastic and you will get it in there backwards. You'll know that you've done it though. So we'll get that plugged in. So that'll give us some power. And then lastly here, what we'll do is take our monitor, external monitor, and we are going to plug that one in. So there we are. This is going to give us everything but keyboard, and have obviously disk drive and all that kind of stuff. But we're not going to be able to type, but we are going to see if it's going to boot up, which is most of the battle here. So if we come in here and add some power to the back of our power supply. And let's bring up our video. And we will turn on the power. And cross our fingers. There we go. SX64 basic. So we know that the JiffyDOS chip, at least on the motherboard, is working. Go ahead and try flipping our switch here. You have to turn it off before you switch. Go ahead and do that. Turn it back on. And there we go. That's JiffyDOS again. I'm going to need to go. This switch has 3 positions for some reason. Not exactly sure why. Maybe it's harder to get a 2-position switch these days. I really don't know. Or were they always 3 position? Not certain. Let's try it in the other position. Nope. I must have went back to the original. Go all the way back the other way. Turn it back on. There we go. SX64 basic. So we know that our chip in there works. So we can go ahead and turn that off and unplug our AC. Unplug our power supply. Now, I'm going to show you something here as well, actually, before I go through all that. Really, for this test, the I/O board here isn't necessary. If you don't plug this in, let me show you what happens. Go ahead and turn it back on, and you'll see what happens without that board installed. It boots up. It boots up just fine. Except there's no cursor. Cursor is provided by one of those CIA chips. So, you know, you could still not put that board in and see if you get a screen, and then you can plug the board in if you want to make sure the cursor works and whatnot. But that's another little shortcut as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that AC, pull the power supply off, set it aside. We can get rid of this. Pull our video out. Disconnect our connector PCB. Set it aside. So there's half of the battle. All right, so our next step is going to be getting the other portion into the floppy disk controller. So here's our floppy disk controller. And the kernel, the DOS chip is going to go into the ROM socket labeled UA3, which is right here. So again, this is a part number of that 28-pin socket, 24-pin chip. Same thing as what's on the CPU board. We are going to offset that away from pin 1. So let's go ahead and get this one pried out. Very gently from either side. There she comes. You got to get out of bed after being there for 30-something years. 40-something years. All right, so we will set that aside. Let's see how old she actually was. Looking there, looks like we got the 52nd week of 1983. So 83, 93, 40 years old coming up here. 39 years old, right? If my math is correct. All right, so we'll set that one aside. And we'll grab our other ROM here. Take a look at it. Again, it is the JiffyDOS 1541 DOS. Pull our anti-static off the bottom. Find our pin 1 designation right there. Line it up with our board, flip it over, and bung it in. Making sure our pins are all lined up very nice. Offsetting it away from pin 1. Check to make sure we have no bent or misaligned pins. And it all looks good. Take our old one, set it aside. And there's that. So now that that is installed, I wish there was an easy way that we were going to be able to test this without putting it back together. Unfortunately, on this I/O board here is a keyboard connector. This one here, if I remember correctly, it goes to the keyboard, and that keyboard wire runs down into the case all the way to the front. I could probably make up some sort of a connector to put in there to be able to connect up the keyboard and then do it externally, but at this point we're just going to put it back together and make sure that it works and that the drive sees it. So let's get the unit back up here and get that started. All right, so we got it back up here. Unfortunately now, these two are kind of linked together with that switch. So gotta kind of keep stuff close together. So we're going to set the floppy disk controller back in here, making sure that we get down into that slot. If you put it in upside down, you could probably manage it, but it won't work that way. So try doing it the right way. There we go. That's going to fit a lot easier now. If you make sure the holes are very well lined up before you start trying to push this back in, you'll save yourself a lot of time. So line up the hole, take your little push pin, push it all the way through. And then the actual pin that goes in the center, push that through, and there we go. Do the same thing for the back. Make sure the hole is lined up and everything. Oh, actually, let's go to, oh, can't see any better on that side. Sorry. Make sure the hole is lined up. Go ahead and get that pushed through. That one does not want to go back in. There we go. Put our push pin through. I'm not certain what happened to the middle one. I probably lost it years ago. This machine has been moved around quite a bit. taken apart a couple times and whatnot, so who knows. So, you know, obviously there's no ground plane thing going on here, so that's why they're not using screws. It's not that big of a deal. We're not missing a ground because something isn't screwed down. Would be nice to have all of them. But we don't. So I'll go ahead and put some connectors back on here. So that is in. We're now going to drop in our CPU board. And again, we're going to make sure we're oriented correctly. Make sure we're in the slot on the bottom. Okay, and we are. Now we'll do our little push pins. This one is being a bugger. Some people, when they work on these, they try to do the work with the boards in place, and I just can't bring myself to do that. There's too much. Could be messed up trying to do it that way. That's why I prefer just to take it apart. It doesn't take that much longer. Alright, so now our CPU board is in. Go ahead and plug in our video cable. We can now put in our power supply. Let's move our switch out of the way. I'm not going to screw the power supply in yet, because I believe when we install the switch, or switcher, we're gonna need to grab a hold of some power someplace. So I'm just gonna hook it up for now. We get our power going over to here. Got our power going over to here. Okay. So now that that's done, we can get our IO board installed. Go ahead and get that into the slot. Fell in first time there. Line it up. And as long as you're in the slot, it should just be as simple as giving it a push. Everything should already be lined up. So hold the CPU board from the back, give it a little wiggle, and it should just drop in. Well, it's hard to see, all these wires are in the way. See if we can clear it up so you can see better. Let's see. Let me get this in another position. It's easier to see. There we go. Go ahead and pull this out of the way. There we go. Now everything will be lined up. You can see here we've got our pins in line. See how easily that goes in now? We hold it from the bottom, give it a little wiggle. Everything should be seated well, and then we can put back in our little retaining push pin. Maybe, if it wants to agree. There we go. And drop that in. So now that leaves us with a few connectors to get finished hooked up here. Put this one back on. Get our keyboard connector back. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's come down here and get our cartridge port plugged in. Again, remembering pin 1 is at the top. This one's going to be a little bit hard to do at this point. Getting it all lined up, but it can be done. Just go slow, be careful, make sure things are lined up before you give it the final heave-ho. Alright, so now we do the keyboard. That one plugged up. Okay, come back here, get you plugged in, and we have our connector board here, which again, I know we have to do some soldering on this, so I'm not going to bother mounting. Just going to plug it in here. Zoom back out. The external video going there, floppy disk there, expansion port here. Make sure everything is lined up before we push. There we go. And we can set that aside. Then we should have one more here coming off of, where'd you go? Right here. This is the drive reset switch, I believe. And get that one plugged in. Okay, should have all of our wires plugged in. And we should be able to get plugged in. ease this up and plug the keyboard in. Alright, so now that everything's hooked up, we can go ahead and give us some AC. Before we turn it on, let's find that reset switch. Get this down in here. There we go. And get our keyboard plugged in. All right. And let's see if we can let some magic smoke out. Well, I did not plug in the video. You guys can't see. I can see. You can't see. Go ahead and turn it back off. All right. Go ahead and prop that up a little bit. There we go. Now let's see. There we go. So I'm seeing a problem. Let's see if we can see it. Ah, yep. Our disk light is stuck on. So something's not working right. Something isn't happy. Well, so what is... oh, I see what I did wrong. I see what's wrong. I have these reversed. These two connectors. So power it off, swap them. Hopefully that fixes it. You are supposed to go here. I think it was just stuck in a reset loop. You are supposed to go here. So the blue wire goes onto the I/O board. And you are the drive reset switch back here, J8. So now let's see what happens. No. No, I still have the drive running just constantly. So what's going on here? Alright, so I did have to stop the video and do some diagnosing to figure out what I broke. So apparently maybe something had gotten shorted out. Probably this the I/O board back here probably actually shorted against a drive controller or something. So I had to pull that out, pull the disk drive out, hook it up, power supply and everything, lay it on the bench, and go through and do some diagnostics. What it ended up being was the 74LS14, which is often caused the fuse chip. I believe it's a hex inverter. I have to look that up and see. But it had failed, which was causing the drive light to stay on all the time, and the drive not working. So I may make a video about that. I did shoot some footage for it, but I don't know how well it turned out. But in any case, got that fixed, put everything back together here, and let's go ahead and power it on and see how it looks. Drive light went off, and there we go, JiffyDOS. And there it is. Let's go ahead and put in an @ symbol on the keyboard, hit enter. JiffyDOS 1541 is displayed, so everything is working there. Let's go ahead and we will turn it back off again, flip our switch. This should put us back to standard. And we will turn it back on again. Drive light comes on, goes off, and there we go, SX64 basic. So all good there. And obviously that @ doesn't work here. Has no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. So all that is good. So now we can continue on with the installation of our ultimate SX64 switcher. So let me find that that board, and we'll get started on that. So kind of just to give you a general overview of what needs to be done. We're basically going to be taking this switch out and doing some wiring here. We need to be able to get some power for the switch, and that is going to come from somewhere on this board. I'm going to have to take a look at the directions. Then we also need to hook up to, I believe it's this leg here of the IEC port. I think the instructions have you just soldering directly to the leg there. We'll probably come off the back side here, come on the bottom of the board, a little bit nicer and cleaner. So we got to do that. We're going to get power off of here, ground off of here. We're going to need to tie into the reset line on the reset switch, drive reset switch here. We're going to cut a trace on one of these boards here and wire another wire up to that, and then, like I said, we're going to tie into one of these here. So kind of got to go through and re-disassemble again. So let me go ahead, and you don't need to watch everything being pulled apart again. So let me get everything we're going to need out, and then we'll kind of go through it in more detail. All right, so I have went in and pulled out the boards so that I can better explain this and actually get the work done. So just to overview it, zoom in a little bit. So what we need to do here is we're actually going to be getting our power. Our 5 volts power will be coming from either one of these two pads here. So these ones here with the big trace that comes down and then it branches off, so it's coming off this port here. The reset, one of the resets is going to go to the middle pin of the IEC port here. So we got to go to there. So there's 2 wires there, and then the ground actually comes from right here, the board itself has a grounding pad as well. When you screw it together, it grounds. And then on our controller board, we're actually going to be cutting this trace here between those two pads so that we can solder to the bottom side, if I remember correctly. Solder a wire there so that we can do drive number changing. And then we're also going to be coming off of, I believe, we're going to tie into the white wire here, not positive there. Have to pull the chip off, take a look at the bottom, see which one is ground. We're not going to the ground side, we're going to the other side, so that'll be the ROM switch wire. Yep, so that's what we're going to have to do. Probably start with this one, getting that done. And here's our kit right there. So let's get this bad boy opened up. And there it is, so you guys can see. There we go. Not much to it. Here's that ground pad that I talked about. So when this gets screwed down, the grounds will be touching. So there's that. So we will start with going ahead and wiring up the red LED, which will be for power. It's a nice short wire. It's not going very far. There. I think maybe we might come around this way. Thank you. Yep, come to right there. Yeah. We'll go ahead and strip this one down a little bit. Go ahead and tin that up some. Lift up soldering iron. Move this so you can see a little bit better. There we go. That should work. I'm just going to put a dab on there, clean it off some, heat up the wire, tin that up. Now with any luck, yeah, looks like Just go right there. And it is a through hole, so I'm actually going to come on the back side here and solder it on the back side. Oh, there we go. Soldered onto the back side, through the hole there. There we go. There's our power. Now let's take a look at this center pin. It looks to be, it's going to be another through hole as well. It's going to be soldered pretty good on this side. Although, see, there's no trace at all around it. So rather than, they show in the instructions soldering it directly onto the back here. I think it's going to look better if we just come right around the back side here and yeah, solder right to here. That one there. So let's take a look here. What wire is that going to be? It's going to be the blue wire. So again, it's another nice little short one. So you don't want to go very far. So let's flip this over. I'm going to go ahead and just mark this real quick. Let me make sure we're going to the right one. Just put a little black dot there. Right next to it. For us old folks, I can't remember. Yeah, I'll strip this back a little bit. And again, just to make our lives easier, tin this up. Here. A little bit of a bend. And I think I'm going to make my life a little bit easier. Get some trace tape here. And just tape that wire down so that we can more easily solder. Don't need much. Lay that on there. Tape that down. There we go. I think that'll work well. Holding it in place. Get a good solid connection. With my magnifier. I think that'll work nicely. Cut a little bit of this off. There we go. There it is. Connect it right onto that wire, or that pin. And then we'll, yeah, just like that. Okay, so I believe that should be that for that board. Set that aside. Now what we need to do here is cut a trace. Let's see if I can zoom in far enough to be able to see exactly. There we go. So we're going to cut this trace right here. And I'm going to go find something to cut it with. Okay. I've got my razor knife here. Milwaukee. This has seen a lot of action, this knife. In any case, I'm just going to go through here and cut this trace. Score it a few times. Start getting through that tinning. We want to get down into the fiberglass of the board. So just keep going over and over it until you think you're through, but not so far you cut all the way through the board. You should be able to tell it's going to feel very gritty once you're through. There we go, it feels gritty all the way. Where's my brush? There we go, I think we're through. Let's grab our own meter and check. Touch it on both sides. Make sure it doesn't beep. I touch that side, getting beep. This side we're not getting a beep. Come back to this side just only. Get a beep, no beep. So I believe we are through. Something else you can do is you can shine a light through it. Might give you some sort of indication of if you're all the way through. Okay, by doing that there, and you're not going to be able to see, but I can see. light on my phone is just too bright for the camera. Impossible for you to really tell. But for me, I can see that there is no trace there anymore. So, let's take a look now and see, make sure. Yes, we are soldering to the bottom side of that trace, and we are attaching the gray wire. So, from our circuit board, or our ultimate reset switch here, we're going to grab our gray wire. And we're going to be attaching it to that side right there. So we'll go ahead and strip and tin. I do need some new dikes. Christmas is coming now, so who knows. I think that's one of those things that every Christmas I ask for. Start over here. Once or twice. There we go. A little bit of wire showing there. I'm trying to keep this in view. Grab our soldering iron. Heat that up. Put the solder on it. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the pad here. Heat that up a bit. A little bit of solder. And take our wire. Chuck that on there. There we go. Seems pretty good. Do a continuity check real quick. Make sure that we didn't bridge that cut trace. And doesn't look like we did. So, it looks pretty good to me. Really hard to tell on camera there, but it's close, but it's definitely good. So there we go. That's that portion. The next thing we need to do is it talks about for our reset switch. It's going to be the yellow wire. That's the next step in its directions. We're gonna actually take a look here. here is our reset switch. Probably got to zoom out. So here's our reset switch. Directions show that it should be this red wire. However, it also says in the directions that you know, once you install it, if you power it up and it's continually rebooting, that you may need to switch it to the other side. So what they have you doing is basically tinning up your wire and putting the connector in the board and then inserting it from the bottom as well, so that this wire is touching both. I'm going to hold off on this step. You know, you can see I've kind of modified every step here in some way, just to my taste. I don't particularly care for that much either. So what we may end up doing is pushing it from the top, which, you know, certainly isn't much of a modification. Tin it up and just push it in there. That could work, or we could disassemble the connector and drop a little bit of solder on there. I think there's enough room for both wires in there. No, probably not. There's not a lot of room there in the top of the connector to be able to get two wires through there. So that's probably not viable. Well, maybe. Actually, I did get it in there. So we might explore doing that. Another option would be go ahead and cut that, get some shrink tubing, and tie that in directly into the wire. And that would probably be a little bit nicer as well. You know, I worry about, you know, tinning that up, sticking it in the bottom, and then having it fall out, which could very easily happen. So, yeah, we're going to hold off on this step. Save that one for the very last. So going back to the instructions here. The ROM select wire. So on the bottom of our chip here, of our JiffyDOS, go ahead, pull this out, show it to you. We have, going on here, our two wires, okay? And if you look at these two wires, we will see that gray is here. If we follow that around to where it's soldered on the back side, you'll see gray says ground. Okay. If we look at white, which is the second pad back, we have 13, looks like, right? I think that says 13. So reading through the form on CBM stuff, they have, you know, there's not very much about this circuit. And the instructions that come with it are showing using an original burned ROM. So newer JiffyDOSs obviously are going to come in this format. So the instructions really don't cover that at all. But if you read through there, you know, there's like one quick little post that says, yeah, when you're tying in your wire for your ROM select, don't use the ground wire, use the other one. So we're not going to touch gray. We are going to go on to the white one. So it doesn't say necessarily what to do though with the ground. So yeah, you know, do we cut it? Do we leave it there? I'm not certain. So get our chip put back in here. Okay. Good. So the wire for that ROM select is the green wire, which is the longest one on here. So obviously we're going to be eliminating the switch. So looking at the switch here, you know, white to white, gray to gray. Yeah, not exactly certain. I'm thinking that, yeah, it's gonna, so it's in one position. It's obviously making this connection here. It is pulling it to ground. So what we're going to change here is, you know, this must be getting the white wires are going to get 5 volts on them, or to ground, to determine which way is switched. So I'm believing that we don't necessarily need the gray wire anymore. So just to start us out, I'm going to leave it in the circuit. I think we probably can remove it, but let's go ahead and just desolder these. Because we're not using the physical switch anymore. Might as well pull it off and save it. I'm sure we'll find another use for it at some point in time. That is if I can get it to desolder. Too much heat being whipped away. Doesn't want to go. Well, I guess we'll just cut it. We'll just cut it right out of there. Also cut out the white ones. What I'm thinking we're going to do here is, we'll leave them there for now. I might try to tube those together. So our white ones we're going to attach to our green one. So we'll go ahead and strip these. I really need a new set of dikes. I might be further ahead to. No. Let me try these ones. Side dikes. Must work better. Yep, time for new dikes. Well, these ones are sharper. Nope, failed. There we go. There's that white one. Now I'll take a look at our green. Yeah, I like those a lot better. Right now, at least. So what I'll do here is I'll just take all three of these, both the whites and the green. Get out here, Gray. Not interested in you. Hit the road. There we go. Get them line up together, give them a twist. Could have made it longer. Stretch them a little bit longer. There we go. They're all together. Set everybody up. There we go. One ménage à trois. Of 3 wires. And I should have some shrink tube around here someplace. Is this too big? Might work this time. If I remember right, this stuff shrinks down pretty well. Can you tell that I love shrink tube? I love me some shrink tube. Get ourselves a little section, 2 of them, I guess. One. And 2. And you know, it's just handy. I happen to have my heat gun sitting right here too, so it's going to work out well. Stick that right on the end. Get out of here, gray wire. good stuff too. It's got a little bit of glue inside. Pinch that off at the end. I think that looks good. And just to knock these out of the way, I'm going to fold them over. Like that. And then go ahead and shrink them up too, just to keep them together so they're not floating around loose anyplace. There. That will work well. So now that all that is done, just double check our instructions, make sure that aren't any steps that I've missed. One of the last steps is quickly test and reassemble. I don't know why we're in such a hurry, but we'll do what we can. Yeah. So let's start some reassembly and wire routing and all that fun stuff on the SX64. I'll zoom back out. Okay. Fortunately now everything's got to be kind of kept close together. Get our board in here, our floppy disk drive board. Down inside the slot, and do our push pins. Let's start with this one. I can't really see that one very good. Push pins. Hooking up some of our connectors. Floppy drive cables, head cable. And I'm just going to flip this over. Set it out of the way. Grab our power supply. And because we're going to test this real quick, I'm not going to do the ground screws yet. Give us some power. Come on. Power there. Okay, now we're going to flip this over. Get that mounted back onto our power supply. So I'm going to start with the one on the outside here, which is off camera at the moment. All right, that one is in. Now I'll go ahead and come back and do the middle one. Alright, so that leaves one to go in. And I'm going to route my wires here as best I can. Pull this back off. Come around. To you. That's going to work. Things out of the way, and go ahead and mount this portion up, the reset switch, through this last one, chip side up, so that our grounds get connected. Make sure it's good and tight. There's that. Finish plugging stuff in here. And what was that one I disconnected? My blue one. I'm going to do the blue one next. Get in there. And then our ribbon cable here. All our pins line up, push in. And that should be all that. I'm not going to route everything perfectly yet because we're just testing. Remember, quickly. And let's flip around so you guys can see. Our ground wires aren't going to short anything out. Sure they're tucked out of the way. check, make sure everything is connected and nothing is going to short out. And if you notice, I have not hooked up our reset switch yet. I believe that I'm going to need to at least get it hooked up first. So, remembering that it's our yellow wire that handles that. For now, I am just going to do it the way that they suggest in the book. I'm going to strip this down, tin it up. We're just going to push it in there so we can make sure that we're using the right wire, because again, in the manual it said, installation manual, that once you do it, if it keeps rebooting, then you just need to swap it over to the other wire. So get this tinned up, and then once we're certain, we'll go ahead and do it the way that I want to do it. Nothing ever wants to just lay where you put it. There we go. That should be 10 now. That's good and steady, or stiff. Good. Now we need our reset switch. They said to come in from the bottom. I'm going to go in from the top right now. It's just got to be able to make contact in there. There we go. Now we need to plug our keyboard in. All right, keyboard's plugged in. And here we are, there's a unit. Oh. Should be able to see. It's powering back. And let's see if we let any magic smoke out. Looks good so far. What do we got on our display? All right, see? Resetting. Resetting. Yep. So it's a good thing we didn't cut that wire and solder it in, because we need to switch pins. So I'll pull that out, go into the pink side. All right, let's try again. And it's not resetting. So, good thing that we didn't. I should be able to see here. We got, oh, I didn't plug in our capture device. My bad. We'll get that plugged in. That way you guys can see better. There we go. JiffyDOS. So the idea is, according to the directions, press and release the reset button momentarily, no more than 2 seconds, to reset the drive, which would be the standard way of that working. The reset button is in here. Sorry, the lighting inside there isn't so great, but it's right down here at the bottom. We just press it, the drive should reset. Just the drive, the way that it used to. So that's still functioning. To reset the computer, press and hold reset for 2 to 4 seconds, then release. So let's try that. 1, 2, 3, release. And it reset. That's working. Good, good, good. Change the ROMs. Press and hold reset until the computer resets, about 8 seconds. So if we hold this down until it resets, it should boot up into SX. And yes, it did. We're now in SX. And from what I'm told, if we actually power it off now, it should remember what setting it was previously. So we turn it off, turn it back on. It should still come up into SX64 mode. And capture device is being a little bit slow. It did. It is still in SX64 mode. So let's try that the opposite way. We'll go ahead and hold it down for 8 seconds until it reboots. There it goes. Let go. We should be in JiffyDOS. Turn it off. Turn it back on. And it should come up into JiffyDOS mode. And it does. So, all is good there. If we hit at here, hit enter, we should get our JiffyDOS version. And was it Commodore? Shift run stop loads the game, or loads the from cartridge. 2, 3. Sorry, loads from disk. One last feature. When changing the drive number, press and hold the reset button for 5 to 7 seconds. So before it actually goes to reboot, don't hold it quite that long. So if we do, right now, if I try to do I do have a new keyboard membrane on order, so that's when that comes in. We're going to do a keyboard membrane, and we're also going to be fixing the too many. we'll also be fixing the case that got broken around the outside of the keyboard. Did I? There we go. Now it's reading from the disk. So as of right now, at least this boot, the internal drive letter is 8. Yep. So now if we hold it down for 7 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It should reboot again. And now it should be number 9, I believe. And yes, it's loading on 9. And if we go back up here and change this to 8, it should give us an error. Ah. 8. Yep, device not present. So that's it. Success. Just a matter now of doing that wire. So let's get that done. And buttoning things up, and this will be done for today. Pull our power, and pull our connector, and yes, we do have that on the pink side. So how long is that wire? It's a bit on the short side. I think, and this is a very long wire. I'm thinking we split into it here. Yeah. Yeah. We'll split into it. Use some more shrink tube. Give ourselves plenty of room here. Okay. Strip these back. Too much. These do not like to clean out very easily. There we go. And we'll take all 3 here now and turn it. That we have our yellow wire. Give everybody a nice twist. Good physical contact there. Grab our iron. solder everybody together. Good, good. And let's see here, what's going to be the best way of I think I'm going to reach all right that way, yeah. We're going to go down on like that. Like, yo, shrink all that together. That's going to put everything nice and close. Give ourselves a little bit of heat. Drop around and give it the plug. And just because we should, we will retest. Make sure we didn't mess anything up. And it is working. Yes, sir, still working. Good, good, good. All right. Now we can get everybody put back together and happy. retest again to make sure everything's still good. And then I think we might be able to call it a day. Power in the back. Keyboard in the front. Power. And it appears to still be working. See, the capture device is working again. It's gotten confused. Oh, there it goes. Okay, remember why? We changed it to drive 9. So what did we say? 7 seconds? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And there we go. Yep. So this portion's done. I'm gonna have lots of other videos on this machine. Again, we got to fix this keyboard. We got to do some plastic repair on it. Whether you can see or not. Yep. Chunk's missing. Need to take it apart, change the membrane out. That is should be here any day now. Get that portion done. That'd be nice to actually be able to type on it and use it. And then some other things to do. I had noticed, and I never realized this, is that probably the reason this keyboard fell off, there is only one clip. This one is intact. This one is missing. So I'm on the lookout for a replacement front bezel. The keyboard, you know, I'm gonna have to do some reshaping, or replacing some plastic, making some plastic to fill in pieces that are missing. And then I'm gonna spray paint it. So, but the front here is gonna be a different color. I'm not saying it couldn't be spray painted, but it's gonna be a bit more hard. I gotta try to get a color match and all that kind of stuff if I were to build out a replacement clip, or you can 3D print them from what I understand, and then glue it on, and then again it would have to be painted. So kind of one of those things where I got to decide how I'm gonna fix that. But keyboard is next. So thanks a lot for watching. I know a very long video, but hopefully it was worth it. Hopefully you learned something, and it'll help you when you're getting ready to do the same job on your machine. Again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.